Well, hello everybody. Jose Rodriguez here. I am relaxing in my back room, the print room, where all my printers that I am currently using reside. But this video is not going to be about printing, except maybe at the very end. I recently had a conversation with someone, and they asked me because they knew about the channel and such, and they know my family, they know my daughter's family, the oldest daughter that lives here, Nathan's mom. We were at a recent Easter dinner, and I got to sit down with people that I really didn't know very well. And so it all started, they started asking questions about me and how I got here and all, curiosity seekers, if you will. And so I said, "Oh, really? You want to find out about me? You want to know how the family became what it is at this point and why we are meeting there?" And so I had to start from the very beginning. And I have discussed some of these little stories on my live stream. Maybe you have heard those, maybe you have not. But simply at age like 8.5 years in Puerto Rico, I decided I wanted to become a photographer. I didn't know that yet, but I really got interested in photography due to some photos that I saw of my cousin's wedding in Spain. They came back from Spain, and the photographer they had hired happened to live up the street from us. Now, we lived in one of my uncle's, he was very wealthy, properties, and so it was a simple matter to go upstairs to where they resided in the apartment building. And I looked at the album, and it was amazing because these were not little tiny pictures. Mostly at that point, you had a 6x6 centimeter camera. You just did contact prints, okay? That's what most of the local labs were doing on that stipple edge paper. Interesting stuff. But no, I saw 8x10s, beautiful sepia tone 8x10 photos mounted with mats, and I was just blown away. I said, this is it. This is the field I want to get into. So at age 8.5, I started to read. The only source that I had for information, I think it was an encyclopedia. So I looked under F for fotografía, and I began to read all I could. Well, I progressed from that point, and I actually was awarded from my dad an enlarger, believe it or not, and some little trays for me to develop prints on. So, of course, doing only black and white at that time, there was a Kodak store, believe it or not, a Kodak store on the main avenue up the road from me. I had to mop floors, I had to wash dishes, I had to do all sorts of jobs, and I earned $20. This is $20 back in 1957. I was born in 49, 57, 58, around there. And I bought myself everything I needed, chemically wise, to develop film. I did it like this, in the dark, in a closet. I took over one of my mom's closets. She was not happy. But anyway, she knew that I wasn't messing around like most kids were doing at the time. So that became the love of my life. I had to do this from now on constantly. My dad bought me a little tiny camera. It was a 127 roll camera. So I went ahead and shot all sorts of pictures with that. And eventually we moved to our permanent house in Puerto Rico, and I decided I wanted to come to the US. So I begged and begged and begged. Age 11.5, my mom finally sent me to live with her mom in Los Angeles. So that came about. I landed in Los Angeles. My uncle picked me up, and guess what he did for a hobby? Photography. Great. I went to the local middle school, junior high school back in those days, and my English teacher, I couldn't speak English. I could read it and write it, but I just could not converse. My English teacher happened to be Mexican, so Mr. Hernandez took me under his wing, and he says, do you have any hobbies? And I said, photography. Well, he says, well, after school every Wednesday we have a photography club. How would you like to join? Well, it was like Christmas time in July for me. So there I am every Wednesday afternoon at the photography club, just absorbing everything this man had to offer. And he was using an Exacta camera. And so I sort of became accustomed to that. And eventually, as a young teen, maybe 14, 15, my parents came from Puerto Rico. They rented their house and moved to LA right next to grandma. So they bought a house, $13,000 cash. Yes, they did have enough money. I couldn't believe it. So, back in those days, it's why I think it was $1.5 million today, the same house. But anyhow, I began to just experience as much as I could, doing it on my own. At that point, I was already in high school, and nothing in high school really for photography at that point. So I got involved in music. I went to a really nice high school, very well known for Hollywood movies and such. I then got drafted, and in the Army, I got sent to combat medic school in Fort Sam Houston, Texas. And just before graduating, a higher ranked sergeant came to the company, and they asked if anyone was interested to write a short essay why we thought we would be a great asset for, and they never told us for what, some other type of specialty. So I wrote whatever I could. Again, remember, I wasn't that great at composing, essays. So I did the best I could. And this is where I will stop. The reason is because just a couple months ago, my wonderful grandson, the one and only, I only have one, was going to be attending the local high school. It's a private school, and they're very, very choosy. Who can be accepted? It's like it's like applying for a university. So he had to write an essay, and reading and writing are not his. He's a great at math and science, but he has HD, and so he's not very good at concentrating and reading and coming up with something to write about. So I told him, listen, buddy, do the best you possibly can, and no BS. Be honest. Be honest. Why? Good Counsel High School would consider you to be a good candidate. Okay? And we were at a McDonald's at the time when I was talking to him. And I told him this very story. We were there for an hour and a half. I hope I don't keep you here that long. And so I told him I had to write an essay. And a couple hundred people submitted essays. Am I saying that right? Essay. And they picked 13. And I was one of them. I must have written something they found impressive. I don't remember what I wrote. And I got sent from Fort Sam Houston, and my whole unit, 700 new medics, were going to be graduating, and the majority were going to be sent to Vietnam. Instead, I went to Fitzsimmons Army General Hospital in Denver, Colorado, just east of downtown Denver, to occupational therapy technician school. Okay, this is going to make sense in a minute. Okay, hang in there. So that essay got me to be accepted to go to that school. Okay, as I began to learn my new field, at the very end, they asked that we could apply for where we would be sent to after this. And of course, they said jokingly, it doesn't matter what you ask for, you're never going to be sent where you want to go. So I picked California, anywhere in California. I got orders for Presidio, San Francisco, Letterman General Army Hospital. Okay, it was famous at that time. 10 stories high, in the most beautiful part of Frisco, overlooking the Palace of Fine Arts. I knew nothing about that. So I get there, I am flabbergasted. This is 1970-ish, okay, 1970. I went to school after I went to basic. I spent like a whole year, like a whole year going to school for retraining into this new field. And I got sent to the OT clinic, occupational therapy. Next to me was physical therapy, or how the patients called it, physical torture. I saw the most horrendous injuries imaginable. All, all of them amputees. We were the amputee rehab center, and we attempted to rehab these folks, these highly or greatly injured soldiers. Um, we had one in particular, and this is something that I'll just throw this in because it truly changed my life. What I am now, what I consider myself as being now, came from this event. Okay. So, and I got to contain myself. I hope I don't cry. So, this gentleman was a patient, and we didn't know anyone by name, only by some kind of code number. This guy was absolutely useless, let's just say. We would stand him up in a adult high chair, and you would just then collapse within it. There was padding everywhere, and your knees were stopped, your butt was stopped, your back was stopped, and you could stand there, and then you had a work area. And he had half a cranium left. You can see the vessels pulsating. And we created a checkerboard with a newly released Velcro. We Velcro the checkers to the board, and he had to, as best he could, pry them off. And he could barely speak. It was just nothing but like that. And I thought, oh Lord. So I worked with this guy pretty much constantly. And after several months, he stopped showing up. And I was wondering whatever happened to our best patient, the one that really needed the most help. And nobody really knew. So at around that time, I began to bring in my photos. I discovered there was a craft shop with a full dark room. And so everything I was shooting with my Exacta, I was developing in the craft shop, making prints, bringing them into the clinic. And my head nurse, a full bird colonel, female, thought that maybe I was not happy there. So behind my back, I don't know how this came about, but we were in formation. The company commander would come out every time, and he asked if there was any photographers in the company. Basically, that means 4 platoons of people. And I raised my hand after somebody elbowed me on the side. And he said, report to the orderly room. That's the office where the commander, first sergeant, and the clerks work. So I went in there, and I was scared, you know what? And he asked me to sit down after I came in. Private Rodriguez reporting, sir. Have a seat. At ease, have a seat. So I sit down, and he says, I understand you're a photographer. I just, yes, sir, I am. Well, I thought I was. So he says, would you be interested in shooting my daughter's recital? And I said, yes, sir. What else could I say? No, sir. I'm too busy having fun. No. Yes, sir. So he says, this Friday, I'll pick you up after formation, and then we'll go to the high school. Well, he took me not only to a restaurant with his wife. We had an Italian dinner. He was Italian. And then we went to the high school. I shot the pictures. Then he says, now what? So I said, well, sir, you have to process the film, develop the film, and print the negatives. When can we do that? This weekend, sir. Tomorrow. So we did. He came with me to the craft shop. Showed him the whole process, as much as he could see in the darkroom. And he says, well, this is wonderful. How long you been a private? I said, since I left AIT, my second AIT, Advanced Individual Training. And he says, oh, okay. And that's it. That's all I heard. I went back to the clinic, regular, every day for weeks. And all of a sudden, I got an envelope in my mail box that had orders, believe it or not, orders changing my MOS, Military Occupational Specialty, from 91 Lima, which is the term we use, 91L, which was occupational therapy, to 84 Bravo, which is still photographer. I went, what? My head nurse got a little upset with me. She thought I sort of did that on my own. but I explained to her what happened, and then she was happy for me. So I went to work for the newspaper under the control of the information officer for the hospital, and we were huge. Okay, Hollywood would come over to entertain all of the patients, and so I got to cover all of those events, trips, the horse races, car races. Went to Nevada for entertainment, bringing patients along. Went deep sea fishing. Ella Fitzgerald herself came to sing to the troops in the mess hall, and I got to photograph her. I got her pictures. And that is how I met my wife, because she was a huge fan of Ella Fitzgerald. Her mom's cousin was a background singer for Ella Fitzgerald. And so she went to the mess hall. She saw me. I saw her. And I went, twinkle, 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 twinkle. And apparently so she did. So did she. She claims she did. She claims that she thought, this is the guy I'm going to marry. Well, we began to be friendly with each other. And we began to sort of date, but not really, nothing serious. Just walking around town and discovering things. Well, as fate would have it, she became, well, I say we became pregnant. And I thought, well, I have to marry this girl. Would you consider marrying me? And she said, yes. We went to Reno, Nevada, not cause any issues with the families, because they were not very happy with me. Okay. So we eloped, got married in Reno. I was already out of the Army. I came back into the Army, re-enlisted, and then went to Los Angeles for a couple of weeks, and then went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. There we had Judy. Judy was born. And who is Judy? Nathan's mom. There you go, Nathan. Had I not done that little essay that I thought would be insignificant, I would not be here sitting in front of you, talking with you, and having an enjoyable time, having a nice cheeseburger. And his eyes just blew up like that. He realized the importance of that little essay that I did when I was in medic school. Remember that part of the story? Yeah, imagine that. So and I could have just not submitted one, and that would have erased everything that happened post that. Okay. So, and I tell this to people. Oh, I forgot to tell you something very important. Now you know how I was able to encourage Nathan to write as best as he could that essay. And he got accepted, by the way. Expensive school, but he got accepted. And that means that they considered him good enough to attend that very prestigious school here in our area. Yes, it is. Not just anyone gets to go there. So let's go back to the hospital. So I am now working as a photographer. And I am kind of a cocky dude, you know. Everything was about me and Janine, my girlfriend. And I was down at the PX, the Post Exchange, small one in the hospital itself. I don't know what I was buying. And a gentleman approached me. He was wearing a suit, black suit, with a cane, full head of hair, but you could see that it was like a toupee. And he walked up to me, looked at me straight in the eye, and said, "Do you remember me?" And I stood there and I said, "No, sir, I don't know who you are." He says, "I'm Lieutenant." I don't even remember his name. "I'm Lieutenant so-and-so, and you helped me." I stood there frozen. It all came pouring on me. I knew who this guy was. That guy. The guy I described earlier. And then as I am standing there, I see something shiny here. The Congressional Medal of Honor. I stood there. He said, "At ease." And then he explained to me who he was, what happened to him. And the fact is, he could speak clearly. I understood everything he said. That was not the case before. So whatever we did, and I was with him like 90% of the time, whatever we did must have helped. Something must have helped. And he told me face to face, you helped me. I got tears. From that point onward, cocky, a-hole, at that time I was 21-year-old Joe, photographer for the newspaper, for the information officer, hanging around with all these movie stars and entertainers and cheerleaders from football teams and such, the 49ers and so on. I became very humble. In fact, I became so shy that I wouldn't have been able to do what I'm doing here in front of you guys. About age 50, I was still that shy person. I was a high accomplishment in my military career and also my civilian career in medical science, basically research, biological research and such. My last assignment was at the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology. I don't want to go into all the assignments I've been given, God-given to me, because when I think back on it, I go like, how in the world did I get these hand-picked assignments? I just don't get it. The Inter-American Defense College. I actually, from Korea, I joined the Special Forces because I wanted to do something really forceful, because maybe that'll break my shyness. And then after that, I enjoyed that 3 years. Went to the Inter-American Defense College. What kind of institution is that? It's like a college for like a bunch of high-ranking government personnel and military personnel from all of the countries in the Pan American Union, which is like the NATO of the West. So they go there for a year. We go on trips all over the place. And so, again, you are handpicked. Then I got chosen to go to the Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe. Well, it used to be Supreme Headquarters Allied Forces Europe, SHAFE. Then it became SHAPE, Allied Powers Europe. So that was then under NATO, which was created after World War II. And so I got to go there. How in the world did I get that assignment? Then I get to go to the Army Audiovisual Center at the Pentagon. How? You see what I mean? Everything was falling into place. And at that point, something weird happened, and the Army wanted me to go to infantry school. I'm 34 years old at that point. No. So I went to what they call branch. I talked to my branch representative for the 84, and they said, well, I see you have another MOS here. You have a 91 series. That's medical. What if we just send you to learn another medical field? And I picked, out of all things, veterinary technician school. And that was here in Maryland. Okay. Remember, I was at the Pentagon, so moved over to Maryland from Virginia. And I went to school, and they were going to send me, get this, back to San Francisco. Then I thought, wait a minute, I have a whole family here. Isn't there someone else that could go, a single person maybe, without a family, can take my assignment? And that happened. They found someone, the same rank I was, and they sent her there. I hope she's not mad at me. And they sent me to the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology. What? I mean, that thing is famous. It was at the time famous. Now it has been closed down. It's a much smaller unit now. But anyway, over 875 employees. We had laboratories and departments for every part of the body. The top in the world Pathology Institute. So I get sent there. I retired from the Army, and the man that I was working for had a department there, and he hired me the very next day. Are you kidding me? So I didn't have to move anywhere. My wife and I just finish figuring out how many times did we move, uprooted completely from one place to the other. 15 times. My oldest daughter, Judy, the mother of Nathan, never had the opportunity to make longtime friends. We were constantly moving. The only one that has friends from kindergarten is our son, Jeremy. And he still goes out with his little group of friends from kindergarten. Believe it or not, he's 44 years old. Okay, Judy is 54, and Janice is just turned 51. Okay, and Nathan is Jeremy's nephew. Actually, he should have been his godfather, but Nathan says to Jeremy, "Are you going to go back to Belgium someday?" Because he was born in Belgium, so he has dual citizenship, and he was born in an international Belgian hospital, so he does have a Belgian birth certificate. So anyway, so you can see how all of these things happen. It's crazy. I can only be super grateful because I have known lots of military personnel who have gone through terrible assignments, divorces, just awful things. Even the ones that I went to in the same plane to Belgium ended up getting divorced. And we threw ourselves into the Belgian community. We lived in a Belgian townhouse and surrounded by sheep in the morning. You can hear them. Bah! It was awesome. We got the opportunity to live in Western Europe's central geographical center. We could travel wherever we wanted to in a matter of a couple of hours. We had a car there, so why not? And we had international ID cards. We could cross any border in Western Europe without having to show a passport or anything of the sort. So anyway, long story short, never underestimate a tiny little detail in your life. And that's what I keep hammering onto Nathan. Everything you do has an outcome. It may be 20 years later, like with Judy. Had it not been by that, because of that essay, I would have never met Janine. We would have never had that baby Judy, and Judy would have never met her husband because Judy would not have existed. There are other things that happened also, which would have put us in a completely different location, and she would have never met Brian to give Nathan a reason for existing. Ain't that something, as they say. All right, enough. Let's talk about printing. So yesterday I was picking up Nathan, and while I was waiting there, I got there a little bit early. I decided to do an impromptu live stream again, and I talked about, of course, Print Prism. And then Mike Cheney reads it or watches it, and he tells me, I thought, this is it. Mike doesn't have to do any more improvements at all. You'll have to watch it, okay? He says, this week I'll have a new version, and he's going to make everything fully automatic. One button press. All you have to do is write the name of the profile you want to create. One button. Everything will be done automatically. And I'm thinking, okay, I got to see this to believe it. So this week he's going to provide me, with the link to the software. I'm going to install it. And of course, I'm going to then demonstrate it this Sunday on my live stream. I hope you all can join me then. And again, this is a God gift to us printers, people who print at home. I got a Pro 1000 here. I got my 200 right there from Canon. I got my P800 over here, my Pro 1 there. I have a 2880 I want to revive. On the other room, I have of course, my 8550. I got my Pro 100 brand new I just opened. And I have a XP 4200 for sublimation. So I got enough printers to keep me busy. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to then install that program, demonstrate it in front of you all. And if that does not sell you, I don't know what will. If you own, and many of you already own this 8550 or Canon G620, which is a smaller 5 colors, I believe, 6 colors, including red, by the way, which the 8550 doesn't have. So it's a very good little printer. Their scanners have already been calibrated, if you want to use that term, to work with Print Prism, among many others. Mostly printers that have built-in scanners and use an LED light source to create your scan. A lot of those are included in the so-called, how should I put it, what Print Prism can use, in other words, to provide you with a scan of the chart you print. What I highly recommend is that you print with QImage. If you don't have QImage yet, make sure that you get it. It's the best investment you'll ever make for your printing. You can edit in whatever you want to use, but print it in QImage. In my video descriptions, including this very one here, will be a link. Use that link. It will take you to a page with lots of other links, taking you directly to all of the companies, all of the folks that have products that I recommend and also support, including QImage, Ultimate, QImage 1, Print Prism, and a multitude others. Go to Print Prism or go to QImage 1 or QImage Ultimate. Use the links that are provided there. You'll get a discount and you'll be set. But here's the last thing I will leave you with. Normally, for you to be able to create profiles at home, and I'm talking about absolutely top quality profiles that are probably better than OEM ones, the ones that you get with your papers, buy, say, an 8550. If you already have one, so much for the better. $35 will buy you that software, Print Prism. And right now, I think it's going to be like version 2026, 142. Right now is 141. So I don't know what number he's going to give it, but it'll be higher than that. And that will have the fully automatic procedure done. One button push is what he's claiming. So I will demonstrate that. You will have the ability to create profiles and not have to spend, let's just say $500 for a spectrophotometer. And I'm not going to mention brands. Mine was $1,500. Let's see that. $35, $1,500. Yeah, that's quite a difference. And I can create profiles that are as good, if not better. My Spectra is going to collect dust. I hate to say it. So, what can I say? All right, enough. I hope you enjoyed this. I was opening up my heart to you guys so you guys know a little bit about my background, how I got here. There's a lot more to me than just that, but I don't want to bore you to death. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Continue watching my videos. I will be uploading new stuff as I come across certain things. And in fact, just minutes ago, before I came down, Matt McNamara emailed me. He's the new owner of Precision Colors, situated in North Chicago, Illinois, here in the USA now. He asked what printers I still have active. I don't know what he's up to, but hopefully that means he's going to send me some supplies for me to test or whatever the case may be. But again, thank you again. Don't forget to subscribe, share, like, comment. And also there's a new thing on the comment section that I just noticed. It's called Hype. Hype the video. You just click and it just hypes it. I don't know what that's about, but maybe that will increase the visibility of videos that I upload. So please do that. Please do that. And if you feel that I am helping you in a way that saves you some money, not having to buy certain things you're not sure about, and I already tested them and I tell you, hey, it's not as great as advertised, don't spend your money on that, consider donating a couple bucks to the channel. That's how the channel generates funds to be able to buy supplies so that I can then demonstrate them for you before you go and buy them yourself. All right, that is it for now. Thank you so much, and bye-bye, everyone.